have been with us on our pandemic EBT journey this last year. And we are really excited to welcome a great panel. And in one moment, will turn it over to Rachel Cahill, who will introduce our panelists and moderate and guide us through our webinar this afternoon. But just first, a few logistics. I'm Tara Britton. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy with the Center for Community Solutions. And thank you again for joining us on our Friday webinar series that we've been conducting throughout the course of the pandemic, looking at various health and human service issues and how we can be most helpful to all of you in the community and make sure that people are accessing services that they are eligible for. So I wanted to just quickly say that if folks have questions throughout, please submit those into the chat. We'll have time for those throughout, and the earlier you send them in, the more time folks have to look at them and make sure that they're able to answer your questions. This webinar will be recorded. We are recording now. It'll be posted on our website, and there will also be slides available for download as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel to get into the heart of our discussion. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Tara. Excuse me, and thank you everyone for joining today. Anyone who knows me knows that pandemic EBT along with SNAP are my favorite topics. Definitely in 2020, they've been so critical to our children in our state. So I'm really happy to have some amazing presenters with us today from our state agency partners, our school partners, our community partners that are going to help me go through all of the detail that we have for you today. But this, as Tara said, is an update. We did a webinar like this back in May when PEBT was a brand new idea and concept. But I'm going to start, for those who weren't with us on that journey, I will start at the beginning to make sure that everyone can follow along. But the goal of this webinar is to talk about the updates that have been made to the program for the 2020-2021 school year, the school year we're in right now. Our state is one of the earliest states that's gotten approved to roll out a plan for the rest of the year. So we want to talk you through that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to try to get a lot into this hour. So I will keep us moving along. We will start. I will do a very quick overview of why we're here. Then I'm going to turn it over to Betsy Suver with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. She's been one of the co-masterminds of PEBT here in Ohio with Bridget Hires from the Ohio Department of Education. Very happy to have her with us today too. We also have Winnie Brewer from the Marion City School Nutrition Services Office. She has been a wonderful partner to those of us who have been trying to understand what this is like for schools and how they're getting the data together and talking to parents and doing this alongside serving meals in schools. So we're so grateful that she's here with us. And then I have my colleague, Hope Lane from the Center for Community Solutions, is going to help us talk through a lot of the feedback and questions that we get from parents and just the really practical tips to using PEBT that we want people to know. And then we'll do a lightning round through Q&A at the end with some questions we already have, as well as any that you guys put through the Q&A box. So go ahead with the next slide. Terrific. So just to make sure that anyone new to PEBT is on the same page. So PEBT stands for Pandemic-EBT. It is a new program that Congress created in March 2020. It was meant to be a way to get money to children to pay for food for the meals that they were missing when schools closed. So Congress created the program really fast, and then our state agencies had to figure out, and our schools had to figure out how to distribute it really fast. And I'm really proud to say that Ohio did a terrific job in the spring and summer of implementing PEBT. I was, from what I've seen, one of the best in the country. We reached 872,000 children. We got them, over $250 million in food assistance when everybody's lives started falling apart. Kids were at home, parents were losing their jobs. So it was a really Herculean effort. And then they did it again in the first 2 months of this school year for the kids that were eligible. They got almost 500,000 kids got a PEBT benefit in August and September. So we were on the edge of our seat when at the very last minute, Congress decided to extend PEBT for this school year. So we all would have liked to have had more planning time to be able to get ready for this school year and implement it sooner. But We are ready to implement it now that Congress extended it and the USDA, the federal government, has finally given us the guidelines that we need to be able to implement. So one other thing that you'll see at the bottom of this slide is there is new guidance that just came out last week on including the very youngest children who are in childcare, or children who are under 6, I should say, and who are on SNAP. So we will have a totally different webinar to talk about that when Ohio is ready to implement. But just for the good news is that piece is coming, and we will come back to that with another webinar, another set of information later. But today we're talking about the kids that are school age that are eligible for PEBT and part of this rollout. Next slide, please. All right, so before I hand it over to Betsy, and I think we lost her for a minute, so I'll wait for her to get back on with her internet. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same understanding of why Ohio still needs PEBT. Yes, the pandemic started almost a year ago, and some people are back to work, but Ohio, and especially Ohio's children, are still terribly struggling with hunger. For all of the years that I've been working in the hunger space, and longer than that, we've never seen child hunger numbers like we have right now in Ohio. The most recent census pulse data showed that 31% in the week of January 28th or January 18th, excuse me, said that they were a household where children didn't have, or the parents didn't have enough to eat, so they're food insecure. They didn't know where their next meal was coming from. And people are always kind of shocked when I show them that statistic. That is an uncommonly high, even even with the child poverty rates we have in this state, I've never seen levels this high. And it's even worse, right, for communities of color. More than half of families who identify as Hispanic or Latino said that their families were food insecure. And it was 42.5% for Black families and 25.3% for white families. So I know a lot of you on this call probably work at food banks, work at schools, work in the community, and have been busting your butts to get meals to kids all this time. And I'm so appreciative. They are so appreciative. And it is making a difference. It's not enough though, right? We all know that it's not enough, and we need to do more, and PEBT is a crucial way that we can do more. So I know this is a tiny little chart, but I put the link here so that when you get the slides after, you can go look and go play around with it. You can look at this food insecurity data. I think it's a really important tool that everybody who's in the anti-hunger space should be familiar with, so that we can see as we implement this program and as families start to receive this benefit, we're hoping that we'll, in pretty real time, see those rates of hunger amongst children go down. So let's go to the next slide. And I think we'll still wait for, I'm going to go ahead and get us started on these slides that are Betsy's until she comes back on, because I can do this part. And Bridget, if I get anything wrong, please jump in.
Yeah, Betsy actually just messaged me and said that she's trying super hard to come back on, but it's giving her a little bit of a problem.
Okay. Oh, there she is. Hi, Betsy, you're back.
Sorry.
Well, your timing is perfect, because I was just about to hand it over to you. So I'll just do this slide and then I'll give it to you for the next one. So this is the news that we have for you today, right? We did get approved in mid-January. And by we, I mean Betsy and Bridget got our plan approved by the federal government. Ohio was, in the top 7 states, I think, to get approved. Most states still have not gotten a plan submitted or approved by FNS. So we are one of the early states that's implementing this. And we are excited that it's going to go all the way through the end of the school year. So Betsy, why don't you take it from here and tell us some of the details of the new program?
Absolutely. And sorry about lost my Wi-Fi. Even my son was like, do you have Wi-Fi? So, but yes, we were one of the first. I'm glad we weren't like Massachusetts, who got theirs approved, I think, before Christmas, because we got to actually get the new increased daily rate into our first issuance that is happening as we speak. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So I'll first off with what Rachel said earlier, like there was a first round in the spring and then a second round in August and September. In each iteration, it has been slightly different, the criteria. The first in spring, it was the schools had to be closed for, 5 consecutive days. and everybody was closed, so that just made it easy. And then this August, September round, if there was virtual or a hybrid going on, they had to be out of the school for 5 consecutive days. So we had some hybrid schools that were eligible and some that were not. And then this round, what we have here is the addition of preschoolers who receive breakfast or lunch through the National School Lunch Program or School Breakfast Program. But more hybrid schools are eligible as of now, this new round. And what we try to say it as, if the school has a virtual learning or a hybrid learning, they are eligible for 5 consecutive days, the school has met the PEBT criteria, because the school has to be determined eligible first. Then you go into the child eligibility for free and reduced priced meals, lunch or breakfast. So what was new in this language that kind of threw people off was that it was reduced attendance or hours for the school. And that was essentially the way the federal government was able to pull in more hybrid schedules. So for kids who went like half a day but didn't receive a meal at the school, they could now get it even though they were attending in person. And then your hybrid schedules that were like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It also includes quarantine days. So even if a school is fully in person, if there are kids that have to be quarantined for 5 or more consecutive days, they are eligible for PEBT benefits. Next slide. Just as kind of what I said, the examples are, the fully remote learning. We have the hybrid schedules now eligible of the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and any kind of variation of that. Remote learning 1 week, in person the next week, in-person learning Monday, Tuesday, remote learning Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then even the children who have the choice of going to school, but then opt into the fully remote learning, the virtual academies, that school qualifies for PEBT because they are operating not at full attendance, technically. And we can go to the next screen. And so we tried to, for schools, try to summarize the language a little more clearly. It was just, if you don't have a standard schedule because of COVID and you're not providing meals at school to eat, then you are eligible, or you have students that are potentially eligible for PEBT. So this eating the meal at school was the big thing we had to drive home. We know that some schools are sending, the grab and go lunches. Children are still eligible for PEBT and the grab and go meals. And even if they go to school for a few hours and that like a bagged lunch is given to them to take home, that does not disqualify them from PEBT. It's only if they are eating the meal at school as part of their standard school schedule for that day. So then once the school has met the criteria, you look at the child and you have to make sure that they are eligible for the free or reduced priced meals. That includes attending one of the community eligible schools, or they've completed a free or reduced price meal application. And I believe, Bridget, you're going further into the student eligibility. And so I'll not get into that. But let's see, I'm sorry, I lost we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so once the school and child have met the criteria, the schools then have to determine the number of days so that the child meets PEBT eligibility. So it's any day that they do not attend in person, or that they attend in person and do not receive the meal to eat at school. And then if they are quarantined for at least 5 consecutive days, those days can be added in. And then the snow days where the school switches to remote learning, that will count too as PEBT. And then next slide. Days that do not count towards PEBT eligibility are weekends, holidays, scheduled school breaks, and days off not related to COVID-19. So Christmas break, spring break, teacher in-service days, snow days where there is no instruction occurring remotely or in person. And then any days the child attends school in person and receives the meal to eat at school. And it is one. As long as they are eating one meal at school, that would exclude them for PEBT for that day. So we had some questions if the child was receiving breakfast at school, but the lunch is bagged to go home with them, would that count? And the federal government gave us guidance on this and said, no, that does not count. So if they are getting one meal at school, that disqualifies them for that day. And then next slide. Each child is going to receive $6.82 per day. This was recently increased from $5.86 per day from an executive order by President Biden. We are able to get that into our first issuance that we are doing today. And then we are going to do a retroactive payment for children who received benefits in August and September at the $5.86 rate when we issued back then. That is going to be done in about a week. We have to get through these first issuances, get everybody's new cards out to them. And then that way that we're calling it, I guess, a supplement will be added to that new card. Each child's PEBT benefit may differ depending on, what their reported schedule is. The school is not calculating based on like absence for sick or they go on a family vacation. It's what is their schedule that they're supposed to be there for in quarantine days. So, each child may be different, and this means the same family may have children with different amounts as well. And the card that you see on the screen, that is what we're calling our PEBT card. It looks different than what our SNAP assistance group receive. For SNAP, it's an Ohio direction card, but they operate the same way and can be used at the same retailers that have the Ohio direction card, except the Ohio direction card. And usually the stores have those on their windows to let customers know that they take the benefits. And as the bottom of the screen says, children can receive both PEBT and the grab and go meals from the school. We do know that some families are worried about that. We also know that schools, are worried about, people not coming to get their meals once the PEBT goes out, but we encourage the families to access both. Next slide. When will the families receive the benefits? Our schools did an amazing job every time. Like, they're the real heroes of this program because it is not an easy feat to get all this data for each child. In such a short time period, we try to give as much time as we can, but they do an amazing job getting that data to us. And so that was due to us on Tuesday, and we are running files right now to get cards out and benefits out the door today. And those are for August, September newly eligible kids, and then for October and November benefits. The December benefit will be issued at the end of February. We were aiming to have a monthly benefit cadence, which we do, but February we had to back up our days because just our plan wasn't approved in the time frame we were banking on to get this all started. So we have 2 in February, and this helps our grocers too, to not have them overwhelmed by all these families with massive amounts of benefits all at once. So we tried to break it up, and then so January's days will be issued in March, February be issued in April, and so on. It's like we issue retroactively by 2 months, and that gives the schools 2 months in between data collections. We collect 2 months at a time, and so we will be issuing our last benefit for June in August. And then, I'm sorry, can we go back real quickly? I just want to say this. So part of what we've been doing as, getting our PEBT up and running, and our plan was figuring out how to make this more efficient and effective through the systems that we have and build them up a little bit. And starting in March, that is the plan, is to actually have a notice issued with each benefit issuance that will tell them for who it's, which child, how it was issued, whether it was on their SNAP assistance group card or their PEBT card, and then for how much, for how many days. So if they have questions, that notice should be able to help them out more. Unfortunately, just because of timing, we weren't able to get that in and ready for this first round, but it will be helpful moving forward. And I think I didn't say that earlier, but if we can match a child to a current SNAP group, their benefit will go onto their SNAP card. But if we cannot match them or they're not on a SNAP case, it will be that PEBT card that we showed earlier. Next slide. Oh, sorry, I forgot that was on the next slide. So yeah, so if it's on there, if there can be matched an active SNAP case, that's where they'll go, or it will go on to this PEBT card. We do have families that have had PEBT cards from the first round and the second round. We are issuing all new cards for this first round, or first benefit issuance this week, because no family was told to keep the card. And so, but now the information that the buck slip that comes with the card on how to activate it tells them to keep this card. So any future benefits can be added to it. Next slide. And this is an example of the buck slip that gives the activation instructions. And what is different than our normal EBT card, which asks for the Social Security, the last 4 digits of the Social Security number, this asks for the digits of the 4 digits of the year of the child's birth. And that is because, you know, the schools don't have the SSNs to give us that we normally do for SNAP assistance groups. And next slide.
Okay.
I think this goes to Bridget.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much, Betsy. That was terrific. And I'm keeping an eye on the questions. So
Okay.
we'll let, I think the question that's been asked, Bridget's going to get to. So go ahead, Bridget.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am so glad to be here with you today to talk a little bit about the schools component of the PEBT process. And one of the major parts, of course, is the certification of students for free or reduced price meals. Just to give you kind of a picture of Ohio, I'm sure all of you are well aware of the fact that we are very grateful to the U.S. Department of Agriculture that this year for school year 2021, they did approve waivers that allowed the summer meal programs to continue on throughout the whole school year. And what that has meant is that schools can opt to provide no-cost meals to all of their students and claim them under the summer programs, which has been a wonderful opportunity to make sure that we are able to provide nutritious meals to students in many different ways, such as bus stop deliveries, grab and go meals, pickup meals at the schools, or actually providing the meals at the schools with a lot less documentation and paperwork and issues that would contribute to the coronavirus and just exposure. So it is a much simpler process. Now, the caveat of that, of course, has been that under the summer programming, schools don't have to collect free and reduced applications. They are already qualified to provide all the meals at no cost and receive the meal reimbursement at the highest free rate. So one of the biggest things with PEBT is that there has been an approval to allow for certifications from the 2019-2020 school year and the 2020-21 school year to count towards PEBT to approve students for free and reduced meals. So what that has meant is that we have really been encouraging our schools to run their direct certification lists to see what children are on SNAP now that they automatically qualify for free meals, and then to also collect free and reduced applications again knowing that they're on the summer programming, but for the purposes of PEBT, especially to get newly enrolled students, kindergarten students, and maybe students that last year didn't qualify, but this year with the economic downturn now qualify. So schools have been collecting those free and reduced applications, and anybody who's certified for free and reduced meals this year, actually anytime up to this February 2nd data collection, they could assume that all of those children would have qualified for free or reduced meals back to the beginning of the school year had they had the more opportunity to apply, or schools were actively collecting applications. So that has been a wonderful thing, that schools have been able to include all these newly certified students and consider them for PEBT all the way back to the beginning of the school year. But also households that hadn't sent in their application for 2021, but were approved for free or reduced last year, schools were permitted to use that information. So they were able to do the multi-time information to try to determine as many students as possible for the PEBT benefit. So we're continuing to encourage the schools to make those meal applications available, and also to make sure that children have updated addresses, so that when if they are not matched to the SNAP card and do have a card that goes out in the mail, that hopefully will have a better opportunity to get to the families. Now, with that said, we do this year have a committed PEBT customer service line. With the transition back in the spring and even in the early summer, obviously there was a lot of things that we had to put into place, but now we have a committed PEBT line that has at least 8 customer service agents that are just taking PEBT calls this year, that will be able to help families with updated addresses if it is a situation where their address has changed. So that was a collaboration between Job and Family Services and ODE that we were able to get that accomplished. So that was really great. As Betsy had mentioned, the PEBT benefit is actually at the student level in terms of how many days the student is scheduled to be either remote education or at the school, and they're not provided a meal at school to eat at school. So you could have situations where different children in the household could be getting different benefit amounts. For example, there might be like a 2nd grader and a 7th grader in a household, and the 2nd grader, the family has determined they want the child to be in the virtual learning academy, so the student never goes to the building. They're going to get a lot more PEBT days than the 7th grader that might be on a hybrid schedule of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that they are at school, getting meals at school, and then just Tuesday and Thursday at home. So I think one of the biggest things or the challenges that all of us can help households understand is that they get the PEBT, the new $6.82 amount per day, based on their remote education days or days that they went to the school but were not provided a meal to eat at school. I know it's a little clunky, but I guess if we can all sort of work together to get that messaging out, then households will be able to think, oh, well, that's true. My 2nd grader's at home all the time, so it makes sense why they got much more money than my 7th grader who actually does go to the building occasionally. So we're really trying to get that message out. And then, of course, like Betsy had mentioned, the schools are actually going to be reporting the student information in a retrospective benefit way. So what they just reported in February was actually the benefits from October to December. What they'll report in March will be January and February benefits. So it'll always be retroactive that they're reporting, which hopefully will be a better opportunity to really report the set schedule for the students and to have as much accurate data as possible. Next slide, please. So we also have been really encouraging our schools to make sure that they are sharing this PEBT information with our households. JFS has a lovely flyer on their PEBT webpage. And there is another PEBT webpage. Rachel, I'm sure that we have it somewhere in here, that is a wonderful resource that is has been maintained by the Ohio Association of Food Banks, that has some great household notification information. So we've been telling schools, use these resources, make sure you're really getting the message out to the household so that they know what the PEBT is when they get this card in the mail, and they don't discard it thinking it's something, you know, that they don't qualify for. But I think another message that we're really trying to convey, as Betsy had mentioned, this PEBT card that people are getting is the card that they're going to have their benefits administered to for the rest of the school year. So even though they've discarded, or they may not, they may or may not have the cards that they got back in the spring and in the summer, this one they really absolutely need to keep because it will keep getting benefits added. Now, that's not to say that they couldn't get another card issued, that will be an opportunity, but of course, every process that we can do to help households understand they want to keep that card will, not put them in a situation where they would have to wait, of course, for another card to be processed for them.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I have a question for you, but go ahead and finish if there was anything else you wanted to say on this
I
slide.
was just going to mention that we also, in that PEBT flyer, and Betsy can actually weigh in, I'm not quite sure this has happened yet, but it's very exciting. They are going to get that flyer to be translated in several more languages. Back in the spring, it was in 3 different languages, but now, as you can see, it's going to be also in Mandarin, Russian, French, and Arabic, which we didn't have before. We had Spanish and Somali. So that is really great information. And all of our community partners obviously can help get this word out, and amongst it says the teachers and PTOs, but if you have different community organizations that you have discussions with the districts and schools, everybody helping to get the information out is certainly a welcome thing.
Yeah, Bridget, the translations actually, I think, just came in to me today. So I just have to double check everything, and then we'll get it posted to our website. So things should be up there next week. But yeah, that's we're excited about that as well.
Terrific. And while I have you both unmuted, I have a question for each of you. So starting with Bridget, can you speak to the younger kids who do go to a school that participates in the National School Lunch Program? So your pre-K kids who didn't get it in the spring, but are eligible now.
Yes, so our newest opportunity for this round, of course, is our pre-K kids. We're very excited about to be able to include them. It's really important to know that pre-K can, right now, we do have the child care guidance, which we're going through and looking through, and there will be more updates. But for right now, in the guidance that we've been approved in our current PEBT plan, pre-K can be provided this PEBT benefit if, had the pandemic not occurred, the pre-K students would have been getting at least the National School Lunch Program or the School Breakfast Program. It didn't necessarily have to be both, but it officially had to be one of those programs. Now, we know many pre-K kids only go for half day and sometimes only get a snack at school, or maybe a milk, or actually could be under the Child and Adult Care Food Program. Any of those scenarios did not qualify the pre-K kids for this round. So if they were actually getting school breakfast or lunch, or would have been served by those programs had the pandemic not occurred, those are the students that the schools then included in their data submission this time.
Great. So there might be kids, or there will be kids, right, who some pre-K kids who are going to get it right now, and some who will get picked up when we fully implement the guidance for the younger kids if they're on SNAP.
Right.
Okay, terrific. I know that's a complicated one, but I'm glad that we're getting little kids in on PEBT. And then Betsy, a question came in for you about the exact date. And I know you said today an issuance is happening. So for folks who are on SNAP, when should they expect to see that PEBT benefit on their card?
So I would say we tell them tomorrow, because the benefit file, we have to run all these account maintenance files that create the card, establish the accounts to link to the cards. Those all have to be run first before we can run the benefit file. So that is on schedule for midnight, meaning as soon as the file stops processing or finishes processing, the benefits will be available immediately. So I can't give you an exact time that file will finish processing, but it will be sometime like early morning, 3-4 o'clock. But SNAP recipients should see their benefit sometime tomorrow in their SNAP accounts.
Terrific. Thanks. Okay, I think we are ready to hear from Winnie Brewer. And then let's pull up the next slide. There we go. Great. And Winnie, we need you to unmute. Thanks.
Matter. Thanks so much for having me today. This has been such a learning process through all of this, and you know, different school buildings definitely have different challenges in getting this information. So this is so helpful, so helpful. Just a couple things that, as I've talked to Rachel about this before, just a couple things that, and we are a CEP district, so we probably have it just a little bit easier than districts that are not, but updating those student addresses and phone numbers, that's not as easy as one may think. It's not just a phone call, because then anybody could update someone's address or phone number. So I'm sure every district has their own process, but it's not maybe as easy as you think. So having opportunities to collaborate with different departments, such as at parent-teacher conferences or different meetings or something like that, to where you can have more than one process to get those addresses updated, can be really valuable. Or if it's possible to go in through, like, for instance, Power School or something like that, if it's possible to allow appropriate folks to be able to do that online, that can be super helpful too. We get a lot of phone calls, especially from that first round. We got a lot of phone calls about my money went to the wrong address, which we just discussed, or it went to the wrong parent or something like that. So again, I'll tell you, this has been my Bible. And I would suggest to any district that's such helpful information on the Q&As, I would suggest that districts upload that to their website and their social media so that you can direct folks, because you know, there's only so much information that we can help them with, and to direct folks to this Q&A that ODJFS has provided, because it's really, really helpful. And the 1-800 number is great. I've called myself, and everyone's been super helpful with folks. So letting families know what we can and can't do as a school district, because they all feel that we should just know exactly how much money each one of their students is going to get, when they're going to get their card, all of that good stuff. Just letting, you know, sending that message out, and a consistent message of, this is the information that we can give you as the school district. This is the information that you're going to have to seek through other resources, I think is really important. Sharing the responsibility. I talked to our EMIS coordinator, and, you know, compiling this data can be really, really tricky. You might have a classroom that was on quarantine in a building. You know, you have snow days to deal with, along with students. Our EMIS coordinator created a spreadsheet that is by building, and it's a quarantine spreadsheet, so that the building secretaries can put that information in for those students in those buildings to help her keep that data accurate. And then she also created a corrections spreadsheet. So if we get those calls, or if we find out that something needs to be corrected, she's not the only one looking for that information, or they're not being transferred to her to have to coordinate all that information. So that's, I think, been super helpful for us. And I really think it's important that you have a consistent message as a school district. Lots of different people can answer the phones. Folks will call their individual school buildings, or they'll call their district administration building. So I think it's really important that whoever answers that phone has that consistent message and knows how to help those folks and get them in the right hands. I get a lot of calls that folks have been transferred 2 or 3 times, and they're very frustrated because they just, you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So if you can work through with your district on getting that that consistent message. I think that's really, really important. Next slide.
Great, thank you, Winnie, and please continue to jump in, given your depth of knowledge in the details of how this magic is happening. I really think some of the questions that we're going to go through, you're going to have unique insight into. Now I want to turn it over to my colleague Hope Lane to get into the parent perspective. So we just heard the school perspective. Let's hear kind of the down-to-earth advice for parents that Hope's going to take us through.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rachel. So actually, as Rachel mentioned, I work for the Center for Community Solutions, but my stepson actually goes to a community eligible school. So we are now a PEBT family. So here, I put together some slides for proactive steps for parents to take. So what do families need to do? If you and your family received PEBT benefits during the 2019-2020 school year, you do not need to apply for PEBT. Schools will send your child's information already and the number of eligible PEBT days to the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services. Please, 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 this has been emphasized by my colleagues on this webinar as well, but update your mailing address with your school if necessary. Any contact information, any mailing like updates, please keep that updated with your school. If you did not previously receive PEBT during the 2019-2020 school year, submit an application for free and reduced priced meals to your local school as soon as possible to see if you qualify, even if your school provides free meals to all students this year. Next slide. So on ohiopebt.org, there is a school lookup tool. So you can use this tool to check to see if your child attends a community eligibility school, which I just said at the top of this hour. My stepson attends Columbus Public Schools, which is a community eligibility school. So that means it doesn't matter whether or not we would qualify for free and reduced lunch. He is a school where most kids do qualify. So they give those free lunches to all of the students. And that will be next slide. Timing of PEBT card arrival. So if your family already received SNAP benefits, your child's PEBT benefits will be loaded to either your existing Ohio Direction card or a new PEBT card that will be mailed to you. So there was some data matching issues, and we determined that not every SNAP family that was already receiving SNAP benefits, the benefits didn't always translate to the card. So some of those families also just received PEBT cards. If you don't receive PEBT benefits on your Ohio Direction card for one or more of your children, wait until mid or late February for a separate PEBT card to arrive before calling the customer service line. And next slide. Thank you. Troubleshooting. With new funding from Congress, Ohio can invest more resources into answering parent questions and troubleshoot issues via phone. There you have the PEBT customer service line. Please, please, please remember to keep the latest card that will arrive shortly. Please keep this new card because all of the benefits that have been discussed on this card going forward, on this call rather, going forward will be added to this card that you will be receiving this time. Next slide. So shopping with PEBT. So PEBT cards can be used anywhere that EBT or SNAP is accepted. In the right-hand corner, you often see this in the front of grocery stores or big box stores like Target or Walmart. But you also have Kroger and Giant Eagle and Dave's Market, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. It also includes online options like Aldi and Instacart, Amazon and Walmart. And many farmers markets also accept SNAP as well. And another thing to add, it's not on the slide, but I know some of our border counties where grocery shopping may happen in West Virginia or Pennsylvania, this PEBT card will be accepted in those at those grocery stores as well. PEBT cannot be used to purchase hot and prepared foods, food at restaurants, alcohol, pet food, toiletries, or other non-food items. But shoppers are able to check out with the non-food items in their order. The point of sale device will separate your EBT eligible items for you, so you do not have to worry about doing that yourself when you're in the checkout line or having the cashier or letting the cashier know that you're using EBT. The machine will separate those items out for you. Next slide. Some other frequently asked questions. The PEBT funds will stay on the card for 12 months. PEBT funds do not need to be spent in a single transaction. Using PEBT does not impact a parent or child's immigration status. The public charge rule will not and does not apply to PEBT benefits. If a family receives a PEBT card and doesn't wish to use it for yourself, you can purchase food with the card to donate to your local food bank or simply destroy the card. Do not give your card to someone else as the cards are non-transferable. And next slide. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Hope. And you and I both together compiled that. I was actually on the phone with a PEBT mom just last night, and she asked about 6 of those questions. So I know that she's a working parent like a lot of us, and so she couldn't be on the webinar today. And so I think the more that those of us who are on this webinar can share those tips and tricks and advice with the parents that we know, please help us spread the word. So, all right, we are doing great on time. Excellent job, presenters. I'm proud of you all. We have some time for Q&A now. I'm going to go through a couple of slides that have questions that we've already gotten, and then I'm going to rapid fire go through the questions that we're getting from all of you. So please keep sending in your questions if I don't answer it. So some of these we already covered, but to reemphasize, children can and should take advantage of both PEBT and grab and go meals from their schools. We did hear, I know I talked to someone in Cleveland who said that the day that the PEBT cards hit the last time, parents thought they weren't eligible anymore to pick up their meal. And so they had all this food left that they didn't, that nobody came to pick up. So we want to do a better job of communicating this time to those families. The families I know that are going to pick up their lunches, like they're doing that for a reason, right? There's an effort, they're making that effort because the children need that food. So please don't be discouraged from doing that. Another question is about this whole, like, how do I know, again, if I'm at an NSLP, if I'm at a national school lunch program school or not? And what if I decided to keep my kid home and homeschool them this year? So unfortunately, homeschooled children or children who do not attend a school that participates normally in the National School Lunch Program is not part of PEBT. But a good way to find out if your kid does go to school and you're not sure is that tool that's on ohiopebt.org. There's a list. I looked up my school yesterday just to make sure that it was live and active, and you find out there if you aren't sure. We have this, we've heard already this customer service line that we're really glad that we have, so that if a family, if you have any questions about PEBT, or you don't receive PEBT and benefits, but maybe you think you were supposed to, call the customer service line. It's here again, it's 866-244-0071. Press option 1. We will be monitoring that, and I know ODJFS and ODE monitor that line. Last time around, there were some really high call volumes, so people had to wait a long time. We're hoping we won't have the same issues this time. But I know they'll be monitoring that for us, right, Bridget? I see you nodding. Okay, terrific. And as Bridget mentioned, addresses were something that we needed to be able to update. And we know that there are going to be families who don't get their cards initially and need to report an updated address. So certainly, you want to let your school know that, but you can also talk to the customer service line to sort that out in this first round of cards going out. The great thing about these cards finally getting reloaded, right, is that we aren't going to have to battle this address issue the whole school year. It's going to be this first round of issuing cards, making sure that families get them, and then them holding on to that card so that it gets reloaded and they don't have to wait every month for a new card to come. We got a lot of questions last time about parents who don't live in the same household, or children who are in shared custody arrangements. And the bottom line is that the address that is on file with the school, that it was identified with the school, is where the PEBT card will go. I don't know, Winnie, is there anything you want to add to that? Any nuances that you guys have worked through at the school level?
So we get that question a lot. And if a parent, they need to bring in some sort of proof, like if they want to say that, it should have went to a different address or what have you, or to a different parent. They really need to get connected with the school and bring in the proper documentation so that we can make sure that we have everything on file that's necessary. So, you know, it'd be very difficult for us to just take that information over the phone and roll with it. But again, getting that, robocalls or use your social media to get that information out there. One of the things that we do, even, and I suggest this to other districts, send a mailer out, find out, I mean, we do direct certification, we update that monthly, but send a mailer out with your free and reduced lunch application if you're not a CEP school, or a household income survey if you are, or something like that, so that you can get those kids so that they know that you don't, it's not just a one time a year that you can fill out those applications. I think a lot of people get stuck on that. And then talk to your enrollment folks too. Make sure that those applications are being given out as new kids enroll. I think that's kind of critical. I think we all get caught up on the beginning of the school year with that, and then we kind of let it go. And, situations change every day. But again, back to the original question about one parent to another, that's really something that they need to bring the proper documentation into their school building.
Great, thank you. And I know that there have been a couple questions that have come in, and this is sort of addressed on the slide too, about sort of when to call who, right? This question of when do I call customer service and when do I call my school? And so I'm going to take a stab at it, but Bridget, please correct me if I get this wrong. So call customer service if you've waited for your PB. If you are a SNAP household, you should see those benefits quickly, and you'll know sooner rather than later if the benefits should have been there. You can call that customer service line, and they have a list from the schools. They can say what children were on the list, got a data sent from their school. They won't, I believe, won't be able to tell you why you weren't on the list if you're not on the list, like because your kid went in person versus some other reason, because you don't go to that, they're not on the enrollment file for that school. The school doesn't think you go to school there. I don't know. There could be a lot of reasons you're not on the list. So if you get an answer of you're not on the list and you say, ask why, then I think you'll need to talk to your school to find out why. Is that right, Bridget and Winnie? Yes. Okay. But hopefully this will take a step away. Last time parents had to do a lot of phone tag just to get the answer to, am I on the list or not? So hopefully this central line will really help with that. And will also help with the questions of just like, okay, so I'm on the list, but how much? And if there's any confusion around that, the number of days I believe is going to be on that list, and that line would be able to tell you. Is that right, Bridget?
Yes. Yep, you got it right.
Okay, thank you. That's a tough one. I know as a parent, I'm thinking that way, and I know we want to make sure that that's clear for folks. All right, we're getting a ton of great questions. So why don't we go to the next slide, and I'll have those up while I'm going through the questions that we've gotten asked live. And Hope did a great job addressing some of these. Yes, PEBT is available for children in immigrant families. The National School Lunch Program is available to all children. And again, there's no public charge to be concerned about. And she talked about if you don't want to use the card or you don't feel you need the card. So I think we covered all of those. Let's go to some of these great questions that you guys have sent in. So starting at the top, let's see, make sure I started the right one, ones we didn't already answer. Okay, so again, who should we call? We just addressed that question. You should call the JFS or call the PEBT customer service line as a first start to find out what you need to know if you feel like you didn't get PEBT and you were expecting it. Yes, I believe there's a question about using PEBT the same way that SNAP can be used with matching nutrition incentive programs like produce perks. So if you are, yes, you can use PEBT the same way as SNAP to draw down on those nutrition incentive programs. Thank you for whoever asked that question. There's a question here about are there other ways kids are getting grab and go or free school lunches right now? I'm familiar with districts that are maybe not PEBT schools, but kids are getting lunches for school. So explaining the difference to families about what's a CEP school and not when everybody is getting free lunch right now. This is a great question. And this is, I think, why we have that database that is good to just do the lookup, because it is hard for a parent to know if they don't remember from last school year, or maybe they're new to the school, whether it's a school that typically is able to serve all kids and not require an application. Other than the lookup tool, Bridget, do you have any other advice for folks to know the difference of what kind of school they're in?
Yeah, one of the things that I would recommend is to, if you have the ability, is check out the school's website. In a lot of cases on a school's website, they usually have the nutrition program pretty quickly that you can click to or link to. And in those cases, the school will say, we're usually on the National School Lunch Program, or they'll say we have pickup meals and things going on. I did see one of the Q&As that I wonder if the question is sort of getting at, schools are kind of in many different modes right now in terms of what type of meals that they're providing as well. Like some schools, back in the spring, the only opportunity that schools really had was to offer grab and go meals or meals at the bus stop or home delivery, because school buildings were actually closed. And in many cases, the schools opened that up for anyone in the community because the summer programs do allow that. Now that we've transitioned into the school year, especially that we're well into the school year, some school districts have decided that they're only going to provide meals to kids that are enrolled. It's a program option called Closed Enrolled, which helps them to forecast meals and know, who to serve. And this tends to be a little bit more true with schools that have gone to hybrid or maybe all in person, that they may or may not have those to-go meals or more limited capacity. So it is kind of a school by school decision on what they are doing right now in terms of, are they feeding the community or just their enrolled children? Are meals available for pickup, or are they only available at the school building to eat at school? So I highly recommend parents to either check the local school district website or call up the local school district and inquire. You could be in an area where I believe Columbus Public Schools, as an example, is still doing to-go meals, but I know many districts have gone to only doing meals in-house too.
Thank you. So look for your school's information. That's the best way to know what is going to be available from your school. Great. Let's go to the next slide, just so that there are some outreach materials for folks to see while we're answering a few more questions. So this is the website, the community-facing website that has a lot of great resources. We want to thank the Ohio Association of Food Banks for building and maintaining this site. It's ohiopebt.org. There's a great public service announcement from First Lady Fran DeWine. There are resources for retailers to consider, and for community, for immigrant serving outreach organizations, lots of different languages. So take a look there if you have any bandwidth to do any outreach in your community. There was a question about what is the proportion of students who are eligible via SNAP versus through the free and reduced price lunch program. Betsy, if you're still here, can you answer that one?
Yeah, so what happened in spring was that we found it was about 40% were able to be matched to a SNAP program. Or you mean, eligible, I'm sorry. Bridget, I was thinking who could be matched to an account. I don't personally have the data on who's eligible due to SNAP versus direct certification. Do you?
Yeah, I think it ended up being somewhere in that same ballpark, where about 40 to 50% of the students that receive free and reduced benefits were eligible because of a SNAP case account versus a free and reduced application based on income. If I remember correctly, I believe it's right around that
Okay.
proportion.
Yeah. For those who were eligible for PEBT in spring, 40% received it on their SNAP card. So I knew that that's how many we can match.
Great. And then there's one more question I see, and there might be a few more coming in, but can we clarify which months will be paid retroactively for the students who already received it the first 2 rounds? I think it's the first one is October and November. Is that right, Betsy?
Well, so yes. So for August and September kids. October and November will be the first round of benefits issued today, tomorrow. And then we're going to do an adjustment for those kids for the August and September days where they received $5.86. We're going to do the difference of 94 cents per day. So that will be the supplement we issue in about a week. So yeah, so they're going to get their October and November benefits and then a supplement for August and September days.
And then at the end of February, they will get the December days.
Correct. Yep.
Great. Okay. Terrific. Well, I know we're getting close on time. Danny, do we have any more questions?
I don't think so. I think you guys have done a really good job of answering the questions throughout. Let's see, someone actually just typed one that asked about Fresh EBT, saying people have asked them about FreshEBT.com. I'm not sure if
yeah,
anyone
Fresh
could answer that.
EBT is a portal that helps you check your benefit amount if you're a SNAP recipient, and it has other tools too. But yeah, PEBT benefit amounts do show up on Fresh EBT just like regular SNAP benefit amounts. So that can help you manage your money and see how much has been loaded.
Great. And as we do want to be mindful of everyone's time, it is 2 o'clock. So I do want to point out the contact information that is on your screen for both for Hope is here, and then also some information about PEBT eligibility. And also, this is usually the question that people ask first and repeatedly, but not on this one because you guys had too much good information. But the slides will be available immediately after our webinar stops at this short link right here, this comsols.com/PEBT round 3 webinar. So you should be able to access those. And then sometime later on today, you should also be able to access a recording of today's presentation. So thank you again to our presenters. Thank you to the attendees for joining us on this Friday. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.